Welcome to the Program in the Environment Honors Thesis Symposium. It's a pleasure to have you all with us today. My name is Jason Duvall. I am the Honors Program Coordinator. And a little bit about the Honors Program before we turn it over to our presenters. This program provides undergraduate students with the opportunity to initiate their own research projects. That is no small feat. I'm sure that you all appreciate that. These are student-developed and self-directed projects. They do have support from faculty members, but this is their work. And I think what you'll find after watching some of the presentation, really all of the presentations today, is that this work is of incredibly high quality. It is often comparable to what you would see at the graduate level, and all of the presenters today should be commended for the work that they have put into these projects. A little bit about the program today. Students will have about 12 to 15 minutes to present their work, and then we'll have about 5 minutes for questions after that. The presentations are being recorded, and the link will be sent out and shared with you so that you could share the presentations with others who couldn't be with us today. It is perfectly fine to slip in and out if you need to. I would just ask that you be cognizant of the presenters and try to time your exit, not to interrupt them. Other quick announcements. We do have some PitE swag for all of you. So before you leave, come and get a sticker, represent PitE. We're happy to do that. And we do have some gifts for our honor students, and you should make sure that you get one of those before you leave. I also want to tell you that there is a reception and awards ceremony starting at 12:30. So if you are around, please stay. Join us for the award ceremony. It will be in the Commons area out front. So without any further ado, I will turn it over to our first presenter, which is Jessie Williams. She will be presenting her thesis on balancing development, agriculture, and preservation, evaluating the success of the Old Mission Peninsula's Purchase of Development Rights Program. Her thesis advisor is Jen Maigret from Urban Planning, and her thesis reader was Richard Norton from Urban Planning and Program the Environment. So come on up. You can hold it.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate your support. As Jason said, my name is Jessie Williams. I'm a Program in the Environment Honors student concentrating in urban planning and transportation networks. And Jason, this is not switching. I'm sorry. I will remove thing. Sorry. First to go, tech difficulties. This was like a minute ago. Keyboard? Awesome, thanks so much. Alrighty, so my thesis project is on evaluating the success of the Old Mission Peninsula's Purchase of Development Rights, or PDR program. So a little bit about me. So I am from Northern Michigan. I'm from just outside Traverse City on the Old Mission Peninsula. I grew up way out at the end, for those of you who are familiar with it, like out by the lighthouse. I am concentrating in urban planning and transportation networks, and I'll be continuing on here doing a dual degree with C's Environmental Policy and Planning and University of Michigan Law School. So a little bit of introduction about the program we're going to be talking about, as well as the area we're going to be talking about for those of you who aren't familiar with the Traverse area or the Old Mission Peninsula. So a little bit of geographic context. The Old Mission Peninsula is an 18-mile long, 31.8 square mile landmass that comprises a township in and of itself, which if you're familiar with Michigan township design, it's usually like a square or grid. So it's a really kind of a unique township shape. So it's part of the Traverse City micropolitan region. Most of the homes on the peninsula have a Traverse City address, although there is a unique Old Mission zip code, and it borders the city of Traverse City directly to its south. The Old Mission Peninsula is a high production agricultural area, specifically cherries, which have been the dominant crop starting in 1903. Traverse is the cherry capital of the world, so that kind of makes sense. But there's also apple orchards and vineyards today with 11 wineries who are kind of renowned. So you can see this crop coverage map. It's overwhelmingly bright pink, which is the cherries, but you can also see some vineyards, some apple orchards in there that contribute to the area's agriculture as well. So the area has gone through a lot of change and dynamics, as has the Traverse City region as a whole in the past few years, specifically the past 10 years. Between 2010 and 2020, the population grew by 11.7%, where the population of Michigan actually declined during that same time period. It's important to note that growth has actually increased more since this. During 2020 and the COVID pandemic, a lot of folks seeking remote work were able to move to Traverse City. Those wouldn't be included in these numbers. Additionally, this doesn't include anyone who's undocumented or migrant workers, or anyone who has a second home and wasn't at their second home during April. So this population growth has led to a lot of development pressure on the peninsula, specifically in the realm of large, luxury, single-family homes. This has led to a huge increase in the price of land and a huge increase in the potential for it to be converted to residential development. So land prices have increased nationwide about 32% over the past 5 years. Doesn't surprise anybody who knows the home market, but in Traverse City, this is especially prescient with 64.4% increase in land prices. So as a result of this, as a result of the land's beauty, long-standing tourism industry, land preservation has been something that folks on the peninsula have been thinking about for a long time. Peninsula Township's first master plan was put into place in 1968. And it included the preservation of farmland as a priority. But what we're really going to be talking about is starting in 1994 with the Purchase of Development Rights, or PDR campaign, which led to an ordinance and millage for funding being passed, as well as incorporation into the master plan. This was renewed again in 2003, and it's seeking renewal again in 2022 for a third round of funding. So my project is looking at how has the ordinance, in the 28 years since it's been implemented since 1994, how has it achieved its goals and to what extent? So a little bit about the plan itself. So for those of you who might not be familiar with the Purchase of Development Rights program, when you own land, it comes with certain rights. Folks have typically heard of like mineral rights, water rights, oil rights. Development rights is also one of those, which is the right to build land or build a home site or any other kind of structure on your land. With the Purchase of Development Rights Agreement, a third party, such as like a land trust or a governmental entity like Peninsula Township, pays someone for that land, or it is donated to that trust. And then they retain the development rights while the landowner still owns the remainder of the rights. They're still able to live on the land, incorporate any other rights that they own, they just can't develop on that land. So the landowner continues to own everything else except these development rights. This Purchase of Development Rights program, it's really unique to have this on a township level. These are usually typically on a county or a state level, which is what you'll see most commonly. This is open to anyone in the agricultural preservation area on the peninsula, which is this map you'll see right here. This has been deemed like high quality farmland worthy of preservation. 9,861 acres on the peninsula. So again, this is not all the land that has been actively preserved. This is the land that is just seeking preservation. The land that is actively under protection comes right here, 5,181 acres, which is about 52% of Peninsula Township's goal. You can see the land that is actually protected is filled in green on this map, and the land that is seeking protection but not yet is hatched on this map. So with a PDR agreement, there comes some special circumstances, so people can retain rights if they like, which means they still have the option to build like 1 or 2 home sites, just not the full amount that they would be required to, or they would be able to start off with. So the maximum they can retain is 1 structure per 20 acres of land under a Purchase of Development Rights Agreement. And in the very beginning, to allow Peninsula Township to purchase more land and to allow land values to remain high, farmers were encouraged to sell only part of their development rights. But what folks have found over time is that most of the retained rights have not been utilized. It's still extremely limited. Like you can see, there's 113 parcels in the PDR program, but only 16 have those retained rights. But in the 2022 millage renewal, there's going to be about 10% earmarked to specifically purchase those remaining retained development rights. So part 3 comes to my evaluation of the program, strengths, challenges, and recommendations as we move forward. So starting with my methods, so I was really fortunate that a lot of fantastic folks and organizations had GIS data that they were willing to give me to support. This included the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, Peninsula Township's planning and clerk departments as a whole, and Grand Traverse County GIS. So this included parcel boundaries for the land, zoning, as well as that agricultural preservation area you saw, as well as a list of what parcels are actively under preservation and which have retained rights. I also conducted a literature review. There had been 2 previous pretty extensive evaluations of this program by Joanne Westfall from Michigan State University and Tom Daniels in 2001 and 2008, respectively. So I was kind of looking at their metrics to see where we are, where we're going from there. Obviously, township documents were a huge part of this as well. Zoning ordinance, PDR ordinance, which is separate from the zoning ordinance, and then the master plan throughout all the decades. as well as interviews with stakeholders, was the most prominent and like really most paramount part. I can't be more grateful for the folks who talked with me. Folks from nonprofit organization Protect the Peninsula were really of assistance here. Peninsula Township planner Jen Cram, clerk Becky Chown, as well as folks from the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy who talked with me, advised, and provided data as well. Gordon Hayward was the Peninsula Township planner during the implementation of the PDR program and has since retired, but was still like super willing to help review this project and everything, as well as folks from some of the wineries that are some of the most prominent agricultural stakeholders on the peninsula. So once again, here's the land currently under the PDR protection. It's 52.54% of the goal, which when you see other prominent PDR programs, this is very on line with like some of the most prominent leaders. Lexington, Kentucky has fulfilled 61.1% of their goal. Suffolk County, New York, about 51% of their goal, so very much in line with what the peninsula is doing. And one thing that in the 2008 recommendation that Tom Daniels really emphasized was that new additions to the PDR program should border land that is already protected. So in that 2008 evaluation, he recommended that, and Peninsula Township has exceeded all expectations in that, with 93% of land bordering already protected land. So this is a really like strong program already. Agricultural culture, public engagement, the Peninsula Township kind of public as a whole is really, really in support of this program, which is really great, including farmers. So that's kind of a unique thing in regards to PDR programs, because agricultural stakeholders aren't necessarily always in support of these programs. As a whole, since development pressure is so intense, land use consciousness on the peninsula is really at a high. It's something that's always in the papers, that people are always really talking about and know a lot about with these like current developments and stuff. So land use engagement as a whole is extremely high. Additionally, some of the biggest businesses on the peninsula are agricultural stakeholders, so obviously benefit a lot from this program. Some are involved in the program. Some of the wineries have put their land under PDR agreements. And so they're obviously direct recipients, beneficiaries, supporters of the program, some of them as well. Additionally, citizens, in addition to seeing the scenic views, loving the agricultural culture of the area, a lot are employed by the agriculture industry as well, so have a vested interest in wanting that industry to be sustainable. Then lastly, the Old Mission Gazette is a great local paper that keeps people updated in regards to land use issues, probably more than most local papers do. Additionally, intensifying development pressures seems like a weird thing to call out as a strength because it puts this program under a lot more pressure, but it also means that folks are a lot more agricultural preservation minded than they would be in other areas necessarily. Controversial developments, including some where the land has actually been lost, leading to some negative ecological impacts, have meant that folks are more minded in wanting this to continue and seeing like its impact in future years, which presents a good climate for the renewal in 2022. So again, challenges, intensifying development pressures, in addition to being something that motivates folks, is also really a challenge. So developers are typically better funded than the program and able to move more quickly. And for some folks, when you don't consider the environmental externalities of environmental impact, it's the financially preferable option to sell to developers. So it's kind of tough to convince people who aren't already tuned into the PDR program. Additionally, there's more demand for the program than there is capacity. So that prioritization matrix we saw on the first slide is a function of the fact that land needs to be prioritized by how much do we want to preserve this parcel in regards to this parcel, which means that not everyone is immediately getting funding as well. The process has really been revised in the past 3 years to improve wait times, including a decrease in numbers of the board of folks who approve these, but it's still a lengthy process with limited administrative capacity. And then lastly, identifying specific impact. So it's great because the peninsula as a whole has a lot of folks who are really interested and engaged with preserving land. There's the Land Conservancy, American Farmland Trust, and at the same time, when you're renewing something like a PDR millage, it's important to know which land in particular can be attributed to that program. And that's not necessarily occurring right now. We just kind of know, oh, this land is under protection, which is wonderful. So it's kind of a good problem to have that there's so many awesome people involved. So moving forward with some of those challenges, some opportunities and recommendations. So my first big recommendation is in regards to communications. I think that roadside signage would be a great addition. This is something that through the Michigan Environmental Verification Program, folks are already really familiar with. So this is from the Lancaster Farmland Trust. This is something that is pretty common in regards to PDR agreements and conservation easement programs. So I think this could be a great addition to Peninsula Township's program as well. Additionally, interactive maps. ArcGIS Online, the City of Traverse City and Grand and Traverse County as a whole have really great GIS departments who work in stuff like this and have these publicly available maps. I would love for Peninsula Township to do some more of that as well, for folks to see, oh, that land is under protection, oh, that land's conservancy, that land's township and stuff. I think that could be really valuable for citizens seeing the work of their tax dollars through this millage. Additionally, I believe that strategic increases in density are a great way to conserve farmland as well. So transfer of development rights and new town development agreements were part of the original agricultural preservation plan, but have not been implemented, and there's currently no intention or plan to implement them as well. With the TDR program, you can kind of see this nifty graphic from Eagle. You're moving density, or the amount of buildable home sites, to a separate piece of land. So like one parcel of land wouldn't necessarily be able to have any built on it, whereas others could be built at an increased density. So the more we're building at a greater, more dense level on one area of land, the more we can serve other parts of land. The city of Traverse City as a whole is really looking to increase its density and create more infill into their 8 square miles, which I think there's a great potential for partnership between Peninsula Township's goals and City of Traverse City's goals for more walkable, bikeable, accessible community as well. Additionally, I can only recommend this because it's already such a successful program, but I feel that there's really the opportunity to expand as well. The program is currently limited to agricultural areas, which is super reasonable because it already is a program that is at its capacity. But we've really seen over the past few years the development threats on the peninsula haven't just been impacting agricultural land. There's shoreline land that currently doesn't really have a protection program. This has led to a lot of erosion with development and stuff. And then I think there could be a lot of positive environmental consequences to this. So even though this first PDR millage program was really agricultural focused, there could be a potential for a second PDR program, just throwing that out there. So I'm happy to take any questions you have. I really appreciate your attention, your time, your support, and everything. Thank you guys so much. Any questions? Oh!
How did you become interested and what is your connection to the peninsula?
Yeah, so once again, I grew up way out on the peninsula. It's a beautiful, we drove about 17 miles out to the end of the peninsula, and it's such a beautiful scenic drive. That's a lot of the function of Peninsula Township's work to plan. So I've lived on the peninsula since I was born in 2001, and so I've been a lifelong beneficiary of this program. The agricultural industry is really kind of intertwined with the culture there. Going to the wineries, checking out different apple orchards, corn mazes, it's kind of all a part of growing up out on the peninsula. So it's something that I've really seen and really benefited from. I'm also someone who lives in the city of Traverse City now and wants to move back there after graduation. And so I really have always been interested in how it's designed, how we're actively adding housing stock, in addition to how we're conserving land that is sensitive or that is under agricultural preservation too. Thanks, Catherine.
That was my question.
Oh, that was your question too? Cool. Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering, any surprises did you uncover?
I think for me, so that colorful map we saw at the very beginning was the USDA cropland data layer map. So that's a nationally available data. I didn't really have to request that from anyone. I was just stunned at the sheer extent of how many cherries are on the peninsula. And I shouldn't be because it's the cherry capital of the world. But the fact that basically the whole peninsula is bright pink with cherries was really cool. But then you also see the purple wineries there and the red apple orchards as well, which are all things that anyone who's been on the peninsula are all really familiar with being part of the agricultural landscape as well. So I was really kind of interested to see that cropland data layer map because it pretty much matched up with what I thought of the peninsula, but cherries were just to such more of an extent, yeah. Jason?
Jessie, first of all, congratulations on your really interesting project. I have a question that's half formulated in my head, so
I feel that.
I'm interested in your feelings about support overall for the program.
Yeah.
Because having been up to the peninsula many times and drank too much wine, one of the things that is really noticeable has changed over time, just the amount of very large housing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that that's some of what you're trying to minimize with these programs, but I'm also imagining that once those housing tracts get developed,
Yeah.
those people might get very supportive of this program, right? So
That is true.
conflict that's built into this.
It is true, because absolutely, like, the Peninsula needs housing stock, the Peninsula needs folks there to support this program. The PDR program is also something that's gotten much more popular over time. So it actually passed in a relatively thin margin the first time it was passed, and there was like opposition in the start. But I think at this point, in 28 years, at least in my time on the Peninsula, folks have just become so accustomed and really like valued the effects of this program as a result. So I think with the part of like needing a constituency and people being there and really advocating for this program, I think that's where we can get into the different kinds of housing stock, not necessarily incentivizing things that are absolutely huge single-family homes, thinking about things that are more like duplexes, multifamily homes. The base of the Peninsula is zoned at an increased density. It's R1D community development that allows for some of those, either by right or a special use permit. So I think the more that we're increasing the availability of homes that aren't necessarily taking up huge parcels of land in a residential way, the more we can kind of get the best of both worlds, with folks being able to live there, really enjoy the Peninsula, support the PDR programs, as well as preserving the goals of the PDR programs with preserving agricultural land. Yes, Jamie.
So we have an online question from TJ Andrew.
Hi, TJ. How you
Hi,
doing?
Jessie. Thank you.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you for being here.
So first of all, thank you for doing this really great work. It's really important, and it's also very timely, and hopefully you're setting precedent for more, not just in Peninsula, but other communities to follow suit. So thank you for this great work.
Yes.
My question for you relates to the enforcement aspect.
Yes.
So once land is in the PDR, is there an ongoing burden for the township? And is there an opportunity for more to be done, or is this a pretty passive program? And how does that work funding wise? Are those challenges? I'm just curious what you saw when you looked at once you got the land under protection, what happens next?
Yeah, so this was actually something that was talked about quite a bit in the 2022, which has been going on in the past 3 years, revisions to the program. So enforcement is something that is incorporated into the program. So Peninsula Township contracts with firms or individuals to enforce the program to ensure that folks are not building on land where they're not allowed to build and stuff. And a lot of that comes with the permitting process, nipping things in the bud if it's exceeding the number of home sites and availability. So as far, I believe from the public town hall comment session that I went to in February, enforcement is included as a part of the PDR program's budget. So that is something that is sustainable over time. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it would be able to be a more passive program just with the sheer amount of demand and stuff. Like, folks need to know that that enforcement is there just in order to comply with the demands of the PDR program as well. No, but that's great. It's glad that exists. Thanks, TJ.
We should probably stop there.
Yes, cool.
Questions for Jessie, please.
Find her. I know she'll be thrilled.
Happy to talk. Yes. Thanks.